Hi, everyone. My name is Marcus, Dev Relations at Edge and Node. Welcome to another episode of the Graph Builders Office Hours. We've got Sahaj. He's here from the Guild, and he is going to be sharing with us a lot about some advanced techniques about the Graph CLI. So I'm very excited for him to be sharing his knowledge about the Graph CLI. He's actually been building and maintaining the Graph CLI for a while now, so he's the guy to talk to about this. But before we get into this, what I want to do is make some announcements. Right now, if you are here in this office hours, it's very likely that you're a builder because this is Builders Office Hours. And there's actually a hackathon going on right now for builders who are building with the graph. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick, and we'll talk about this hackathon. This hackathon is called Frameworks. It's going on tomorrow, March 22nd to the 24th. There's an async hackathon. And there's 75K in prizes, and the graph has 5K in prizes. So if you guys are building with subgraphs and want to build some frames, go ahead and check this out. This is an ETH Global Hackathon. This is a big deal because anything ETH Global is awesome and a big deal. So that's one announcement I want to make for the builders out there. Another announcement is we're having a new feature come out relatively soon in the entire network, but right now it's just in hosted service. It's in beta right now called time series and aggregations. This is a big deal as well. Basically, it allows easy compute to be done within a subgraphs schema as opposed to having to do that type of logic within the mappings. And so there's different features in these aggregations. Some count min, max, first, last, and we're looking for people to test data test this time series and aggregation. So please hop in and look for these. And then finally, there's the Graph Builders newsletter that I think everyone here would be interested in signing up for. So for all of this, I've provided some links for everybody. This is the ETH Global Frameworks Hackathon. Feel free to hop in 5K USD in prizes from the graph. And there's also 75K total in prizes, so hop in for that. And then here's the links for the time series and aggregations beta. Anyone here wants to do some compute in their subgraph and test that out, reach out to me on Twitter. Let me know your feedback, and I'll get that to the team. And then finally, of course, if you are building with the graph, I write this every month, the Graph Builders newsletter. My job is to make sure builders have the most information to help them have the best experience possible building with the graph. So I'm going to introduce Sahaj, and I'll let him take the stage. How you doing, Sahaj?
Hey everyone, I'm Sahaj. I'm a software engineer at the Guild. We are one of the core dev teams at the Graph, focusing on GraphQL API and developer tooling. I am one of the maintainers for Graph tooling. Besides that, I help maintain a lot of big open source projects like GraphQL.js, GraphQL CodeGen, and GraphQL Yoga. So today we're going to talk about advanced features of the Graph CLI. I think most of you here probably have built a subgraph or used the Graph CLI in the past. But if you have not, let's get started by just how do you install the CLI, and then we're going to go into advanced features of the CLI. So this is my terminal. You can use yarn, pnpm, npm to install the CLI. I prefer pnpm. Usually I install not globally. I prefer to install Graph protocol. Actually, I should also share the docs. So all the docs for Graph CLI, you can find them here. I'm going to paste that link in the chat. If I can find the chat icon. Yep. So it's pretty simple process how to install the CLI. You can just copy this command and you can just install the CLI. It's gonna take a full second depending on the internet. And so you can see I have the Graph CLI latest version. You can go get the help command. And there are quite many things the Graph CLI can do. Let's get started by, I think, the coolest feature of all times that I'm actually proud of shipping is the Graph autocomplete. We all love, autocompletes and CLIs. It's a life, time saver. So let's set that up. You can do graph autocomplete. It's going to tell you that it gives you instructions on what you need to do. So you just copy this command. Oh, graph command not found. I have to install the CLI globally. My bad. Yeah, install graph CLI dash global. Because if you have it globally, then only autocomplete is going to work. So we're going to just copy the steps again. Only. Now, I hope. So I press graph, I press my tab, and you can see it auto-completes things for me, which is quite cool. Now, let's say you want, on graph tooling repo, we maintain a bunch of examples for you to get started with the graph, like how to build subgraphs. We have a lot of sample subgraphs. Let's say you're learning about substreams powered subgraph, right? So I can actually spin up an example I can spin up this same example. I can, bootstrap the template from the same example by just, PNP, graph init dash from example. Substreams powered subgraph. I'm gonna give it a name. Office hour March, and then I'm gonna create in this directory. So it closes that example for me. It starts installing all the dependencies, and we will get this same subgraph. I can do office hours March, and you can see this is this substream powered subgraph that we have in this example repo. Our DevRel team maintains a lot of different, examples. So if you need help with something, you can just, do graph init and get that same example running on your local right away. Bootstrapping from an example. Next one, removing generated and built artifacts. I think time to time when you're developing on the CLI, we found out that it's nice to have a clean command and not have to, deal with deleting things. So let's say I want to do graph code gen, which is a very common command. Oh, for this one, no code generation required. Let me use my cryptocurrency examples. Is there nice to demo with? So let's say I do a code gen. So you see there's a build artifacts folder. I may have broke my examples. Struggles of live coding. So we're gonna copy another example where we can actually show you the clean command. Let's just do graph init. Let's go through the CLI. I'm gonna deploy an Ethereum. I'm gonna use the subgraph studio. Not a break. Hopefully it doesn't break. Why not? I don't have a contract. Let's go to Etherscan and find some top ERC20 token. Let's bootstrap this one. Yes, I want to read. Oh yeah, this is another cool feature we have shipped in CLI. Sometimes time to time, Etherscan tries to rate limit you, and we don't want you to you can actually press the retry button. I think it's a good quality of life improvement, because once you're spinning up a lot of subgraphs, this kind of becomes very handy. And once this gets on, I don't have another subgraph. Let's start with not break. And then now let's say I can do yarn code gen. I can generate all the code. It's all the generated code here. I can do yarn build. You can see all the build content, right? Now, if let's say for some reason you did some changes, you want to be sure everything is starting from a clean state, how your CI would get on the graph clean command, and we delete all the cache artifacts, generated artifacts for you. It's quite helpful if you're debugging and have been like in an infinite loop of debugging. The last cool feature, I think everyone's trying to move away from hosted service and go to the graph network.
Sahaj, real quick, could you make your code a little bit bigger on your screen? It's quite small.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So let me hide this one. Yeah, we can run the same command again. Just work up because I know it was quite small. So let's try that. Yeah. So you see the built artifact. I can run the graph clean command. Gonna clean the artifact. Quite handy if you're debugging. The next command is migrating a hosted service subgraph to Studio. I think a lot of you, as you're migrating away from hosted service to the Studio, this is something everyone, you have a subgraph, you may not have the repo for it, or you just want to see like if you can easily, migrate away your subgraph. So I'm gonna go to my hosted service, and I'm gonna try to let's find a subgraph I have. I got a couple subgraphs, but let's say I have this subgraph I made. Never mind. This one.
Yeah, that upgrade subgraphs is in the top right. I think it'll just find it for you.
Oh.
Top right button. Yeah, that's brand new. There it is.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Brand new feature.
See, so I have this testing subgraph. I can connect with my wallet connect. Well, we can go through the flow later, but I just want to show that you can upgrade from the Studio and, perhaps the subgraph. Let me connect to my Rainbow. Because on Safari, I don't have my MetaMask.
So, Sahaj, real quick, I have a question about upgrading here versus using the CLI. Just curious about that.
I think they're the exact same experience. It's like if you are already in the code, might as well do it from the CLI.
Gotcha.
Because you still need to come to the Studio afterwards, but at least we set up something for you from the CLI. So you can see, my testing subgraph is a bit deployed and it's getting indexed right now. I can actually do the same thing. Yeah, so you can go through the Studio, deploy it, or is to publish your subgraph to the network, you have to come to Studio, but we actually have like a CLI way for you to copy a command and like that. For simplicity, I am just going to copy this deployment ID. You can look up these deployments, I'm going to go back. Because the deployment IDs for your subgraphs are the same because the artifacts are still on IPFS. And I think my internet is kind of slow right now. But deployed won't have any. Well, I have subgraphs, but most of them are on the Studio, as it should be. Let's see. Let's try this command. Graph deploy from IPFS. I don't know what IPFS hash. I can actually name my subgraph for what I want it to show up on Studio. Demo Studio migration. Yes, it has to go to Studio 0.1. Oh, I am not logged in. That's why I'm unable to get it. So I should first log in with my CLI. So I'm gonna go to Studio to log in. On Explorer. And subgraph, create a subgraph.
Sahaj, real quick, when have you found it useful in your use cases to deploy a subgraph from the IPFS hash? Just curious about when you use that typically.
So if I have been at East Global hackathons where like someone would have their subgraph deployed, but they would let's say they didn't push to GitHub, they lost their repo for some reason, but they had their IPFS hash somehow in the terminal history. So we just use that to deploy it. I think that's one of the use cases. Another use case is like if I am debugging things, like I want to just take an existing subgraph, deploy it, I can just update the manifest, push it on IPFS. Like let's say I want to change a network on the IPFS, on the manifest. It's a very pro trick. You pull down the manifest, you update the network on it, you can deploy it. So that's another use case I have had. It's not difficult.
Debugging is really helpful with it. Just you grab it and you can start tinkering with it.
Yeah. That's on Studio migration. Being 0.0.1. Oh yeah, you still have to create a subgraph because it wouldn't let you. So let's say, this is one of the subgraphs I deployed. I'm going to actually push to this one. I want to do 0.0.2 this time. And for the debugging use case, I can grab let's say hash from someone and just deploy it. We can see my new subgraph version has been deployed. We can look at. Yeah, so you can see my new version is deployed a few seconds ago, and I had one a couple months ago, which was archived. Pretty cool, I think. Some other quality of life improvements that CLI has added. We found that as you're editing your manifest files, let's say you missed out, let's say you have this manifest file, not just one, I have too many subgraphs right now. Let's say we have had many issues in the past where users would have some handler, but the handler wouldn't actually exist. So the first one is let's say you don't have the actual handler file here. You have something, help, and you're trying to build. We will actually crash and tell you that, hey, there's an error in your data source. So those are some quality of life improvements that we have added on the CLI. Let's say this handler I have doesn't match with it will tell you that there's something missing about your data source. We can compile them. Because in the past, the users would actually build and submit those subgraphs and see them failing on the runtime. But all those things are now cached by validations to manifest. Everyone saw the Etherscan retries that I did. So that's another good one. Docker compose file. We ideally want to have the whole subgraph setup running locally with your contract. So we provide a standard Docker compose setup now. So you can just do Docker compose up. Let me start my orb. Then you can do Docker compose pull. So it can pull all the things that you need to run a graph node locally, and you can do Docker compose up. And now, if you're actually developing, let's say you have the contract, usually everyone will have their contract within a year, so they can just deploy your contract to the node running and then connect to the graph node instance, and boom, you can just see everything working locally. So there's a standard local setup that we provide now. Improved error handling. I think that's also something I just showed. I didn't have my deploy key set up. It actually told you, hey, go log in. In the past, there were some issues. Improved debugs. I think this is the cool one. Let's say you're asking questions in the chat, or I don't know why my builds are failing or something went wrong, I think you can always provide a debug graph CLI flag like this to any of our commands. And let's say I want to do build. You can actually see all the different steps within the CLI, and it will tell you that at this particular step, your thing failed. This is quite helpful on a large subgraph with a team where, I don't know which step it might have failed. So these are like additional logs you can look into. I find for, the deploys, it's actually very helpful. You can, Subgraph Studio read 0.0.3. Yeah, so. Nope. So if you're trying to debug any, weird errors that CLI is not making sense, one thing is like, for sure, ping me. I'll try to fix it. Another thing is if you want to debug yourself, this is a good flag to know that you can debug internal commands of what CLI is doing. That's really it for the CLI. Any questions, anyone?
Yeah. I mean, I've been using the CLI for years, and there's some things I learned here. I like the Docker Compose and Graph init. When did that come out? Was that pretty recent?
It's been there for a couple of months now.
Months? That's awesome.
The Docker Compose actually came in yesterday. I shipped it yesterday. This was a community PR. So someone from the community actually set up this feature.
Oh, that's great. So how long have you been working on the Graph CLI?
I think almost a year now. It should be almost a year now.
Gotcha. Tell me, is there anything right now that you're working on that you're excited about for Graph CLI coming out in the future, or anything that you would like to see in Graph CLI coming out in the future?
So we're trying to improve the validations within the CLI and improve like the local testing setup. So you can actually follow our progress on GitHub. So one of the cool things that my teammate is working on is bringing Matchstick natively to CLI. So Matchstick is the unit testing framework for the graph, for subgraph. And today it's like a separate command that you download, but we're trying to bring this natively to the CLI. And then on top of that, we're trying to improve the validation. So like, we want to make it as close as like the experience you get on the runtime when you're deploying subgraphs, in terms of like, hey, my schema has these fields, but like it works locally, but when I deploy it fails. Like we want to bring all those validations to you on your local. So those are the big new upgrades that we're working. And there's a lot of graph node features that are coming in. And I think Marcus shared in the start about the timestamps, aggregations. That is a beta feature that GraphNode has, and we have timestamp scalars coming in, performance improvements, and like topic filters. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming in.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and effort on this CLI. I know thousands of people use it every day, so that's a really big deal. Got a question in chat. Any chance we can do a validation step for checking that non-nullable entities are set somewhere in the mappings?
This was this was something we did try to like improve in the CLI, because many times we get like, hey, I have a non-nullable, but it fails on the runtime. But this actually turns out to be a harder problem than it seems. So we didn't find a solution that's not very computationally expensive. So for right now, it's like, hey, let's deploy it and see what happens. But ideally, I want to figure out like how we can bring it. There was like I think I did a whole write-up. It's an issue that people open time to time. They have a non-nullable field. It's not being set in the subgraph crashes. I haven't had like another thing we're looking into is like improve the linting. So once we have like a better linting experience on subgraph, I think that would ideally help you. I hope that helps.
Yeah, great answer. If anyone would like to reach out to you, Sahaj, or has any further thoughts about this video that they might watch, where should they reach you at?
They can reach me out on Discord. My handle is my name, or you can come on my Twitter. Just DM me on Twitter. I'll get back.
Perfect. And we got actually another question here in the chat. Also, a validation step on the GraphQL dictionary would be helpful. We ran into an issue using token metadata, since the plural form of metadata is metadata, which confused the indexer.
Oh, interesting. That would be a good one.
That's a good one. Nice, Derek.
Yeah. Actually, this is something we're also, part of the validations we're trying to improve. This subgraph issue we have, I think it's the schema issue, I think. Somewhere. Yes, a validated GraphQL schema at build time. So essentially, what this tries to achieve is the schema that GraphNode would produce for you that you query your data on. We want to generate that schema locally first so we can validate it. So once we make more progress on that PR itself, I think that will solve that issue.
Thank you for that answer, Sahaj. Very helpful to have you, who is building the CLI here and sharing your knowledge. And if anyone out here would like to reach out to Sahaj on Twitter, that would be a place to do it. And what was that? We could put that in chat, your Twitter?
Yes.
That's fine.
I'll put my Twitter handle.
Awesome. And Sahaj is working hard to this CLI the very best it can possibly be. Is there anything else, any other questions that anyone has for Sahaj and the CLI? I'm seeing people type in the chat. We'll wait for that. Yeah. There we go. Okay, no questions. No more questions for now. All right. So I'll just want to thank you, Sahaj, for your time. I'll give you the last word here. If there's any other thoughts that you have that you'd like to share with everyone, and we can call it another solid episode of the Graph Builders Office Hours.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to do more updates in the coming months.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sahaj, for your time. Thank you, everyone, for attending this episode of the Graph Builders Office Hours. I wish you guys a very good rest of your day. Take care.